Weatherly Well Cave. It was the morning of February 11th, 1998, when four experienced cavers, James Lewis, Alan England, Darrell Moore, and Jerry Olson, stood in the cold woods of Tennessee, preparing to enter an uncharted cave. Jerry had recently discovered the entrance while ridge walking and invited the others to help him explore it. Locals referred to it as Weatherly Well, but the inside had never been mapped. The entrance alone was intimidating. A vertical slot only 9 inches wide led straight down. It opened into a 7-foot drop, followed by a second 10-foot descent. The crack was barely large enough for a single person to squeeze through, and the rock surrounding it was cold, wet, and unwelcoming. The passage beyond was dark and twisted, tight enough to make even the most seasoned caver uneasy. Alan England, the oldest at 63, but also the smallest and most agile, volunteered to go first. Despite his age, he was in excellent shape and had decades of caving experience. With a rope secured as a handline, he began to descend into the narrow opening. He sucked in his chest, twisted his shoulders, and inched downward through the unyielding stone. His clothing scraped against the damp walls, and by the time he slipped through, he was soaked and breathing hard. Once through, he dropped down into a slightly wider chamber and turned his headlamp to assess the situation. Below him was a 10-foot vertical drop into deeper darkness. The cave twisted and coiled, offering no hint of how far it went. As much as Alan wanted to explore, he knew better than to continue solo. Without another rope and no one to assist from below, it was simply too dangerous. He made the decision to turn back. Climbing back up the 10-foot drop was straightforward. Years of experience guided his movements. But when he reached the base of the tight entrance he had come through earlier, the true difficulty set in. What gravity had made simple on the way down now became nearly impossible in reverse. Alan reached up and tried to pull himself through the narrow slot, but his shoulders caught on the stone. There was no room to maneuver, no leverage. The soaked fabric of his shirt clung to his body, making every motion harder. His muscles, already chilled and fatigued, began to fail. He twisted, shoved, and pushed, but each attempt only wedged him in tighter. Above him, Lewis and Moore noticed something was wrong. They tried to pull on the rope to help, but the slot was too tight for any meaningful assistance. Alan was stuck. Time passed. The cold inside the cave worsened. His clothes, soaked from the walls, offered no warmth. The narrow space pressed against his chest, making it difficult to breathe. Shivering, barely able to draw full breaths, he realized his strength was slipping away. His teammates lowered warm clothing and a thermos of hot drink, hoping to fight off hypothermia. Alan drank what he could, but his situation was growing more dire by the minute. Eventually, he called out to the others and told them what no caver ever wants to admit, that he couldn't do it anymore, and that they needed to get help. Lewis and Olson hiked out quickly and called the East Tennessee Cave Rescue Team. Within 2 hours, expert rescuers arrived on the scene, bringing specialized gear. When they reached Alan, he had been trapped for nearly 5 hours. His face was pale, and his limbs trembled from the cold. The rescuers evaluated the situation and set up a complex pulley system. There was no room for error. Inch by inch, they pulled him up through the slot, scraping past stone that dug into his ribs and shoulders. Alan clenched his teeth against the pain. Finally, after an hour of careful work, Alan was free. He emerged from the cave exhausted and soaked, but alive. Though his legs shook and he could barely stand, he insisted on walking back to the car himself. Later, he admitted he had underestimated the cave.